Delighted to say I'm joined by former Kilkenny hurler and great Ballyhale man, Adrian Ronan. Adrian, how are you doing?
Good, Shane. Thanks very much.
The Kilkenny Hurling
Thanks
Championship,
very
it's
much.
been fairly exciting, except for, well, I mean, there was a couple of mismatches last weekend, namely Ballyhale beating Clara 4-18 to 11 points and Dicksboro running away with it against Bennett's Bridge, so that was 327 to 214. Um, Ballyhale just have to be straight in at number one, really. They're going to be against the Village in the first of the semi-finals.
Yeah, I think that might be the second match on RT on Saturday. RT have cleverly got the two semi-finals. They will be two very good semi-finals. They're probably what most peoples and punters would have expected as the four semi-finalists. There was certainly got three of them correct. Most people would have suggested that the Shamrocks, of course, would be there as double All-Ireland champions. Dicksboro have been knocking on the door the last few years, won it in 2017 and underachieved in the last 2 years. And O'Loughlin certainly have been the farm team the last couple of years in the city. And then James Stevens are coming. They've been there the last few years in the county final, maybe not getting and deserving the respect they get because the country teams, as we call them, the rest of them are the country teams, and we're one of the country teams. So it's the city teams and the Shamrocks that are now in the semi-finals, and that's based on underage success in the last 10 years in Kilkenny. That's kind of going with form because the underage setup has been wonderful in the city, and thankfully then we have a country team like the Shamrocks that are batting way above their station.
Joe Dooley had a tweet there, I think it was the day after the game against Clara, and he said, watching Ballyhale yesterday, never seen a team with so many hurlers with all the skills of the game, do the right thing nearly all the time. Why do you think that is?
It's probably handed down from generations, to be fair. If you go through the bloodline in the Shamrocks, it's full of Fennellys, which of course are synonymous in hurling, and their fathers and the fathers before them have brought that unique gene, I suppose, into the present generation of hurlers. And you go down through the bloodline in the present generation, there's huge influence with the Fennellys, the Mullins are related, and then you throw in a name called the Shefflins, and all of a sudden the Shefflins are there, the Codys are there, they're related to Shefflins. So it's there's a bloodstream there, and then you have three Reeds. It's full of brothers. I know most club teams are full of brothers. You see Shamrocks, it's Fennellys, Mullins, Shefflins, Reeds. And then you have a few new generation of Corcorans coming. There's not too many lads outside that group. I know the Joey Holden and the Masons will give out to me for saying that, but it's backboned by 5 or 6 families. And you go back in the history of club hurling at any level, and most successful club teams have a good sprinkling of brothers. And that has a big help when it comes to a dogfight or comes to a field sport, and particularly in the GA, synonymous. And I think that has an awful lot to do with it. Plus, whatever it is in the Shamrocks gene, they just seem to play this style of hurling all their life. Even in the great Shamrocks teams of the 80s and 70s, they just play this type of hurling that no nonsense, and it's full of skills. And it's different from, I suppose, some clubs that are all brawn and brain, I suppose, but this is all silken skills, and you have to continue that. And of course, they've had the success underage in the last few years at minor and under 21. And of course, that's brought into the senior setup. But the present generation, look, even you or I'd hurl well around TJ, wouldn't we?
I think that's a fair point. But a question I wanted to put to you is, like the last couple of seasons, they probably got slow out of the blocks in the group stages, and then they kind of build momentum as they have again this year. But did you think when Michael Fennelly retired, when Henry Shefflin walked away after 2 unbelievable seasons, and Adrian Mullen did his cruciate, that surely this is the time for maybe one of the city clubs to take over?
Without a doubt, I was in the group that thought Henry's departure, Michael Fennelly's departure, and Adrian Mullen's injury was going to be a cruel blow to the Shamrocks. And then all of us thought we were corrected right during the month of July, because they stuttered again, as they always do. And then we seen signs against Danefort in the last round of the league that they were just coming good. Some of the boys were coming back from injury. And, people question particularly the loss of, not taken from Henry's influence, but Michael Fennelly and Adrian Mullen, like they're two huge players in any club team, and sure, not to mention at intercounty level. And particularly Michael Fennelly, because, he's a man mountain, and he's been, hugely successful, influential for Kilkenny, not to mention his club. So, yes, that would have been the punter's view of it, that they would. But typical of Shamrocks, whatever it is down there, and they won't like me for saying this, they only seem to start taking it serious come August. Like, they'll tell you every other team starts back in February and March, and they go through the paces. I don't even think they have lights in Ballyhale. They don't even use the lights. They just hurl in the bright, and they always hit and click at this time of year. Now they're certainly coming good at this stage. The question in most people's views in the last few weeks might be that maybe they might have had a softer run here now. They won't again like me for saying that. The Roar in the quarter-final first round had a serious amount of injuries, and the Roar mightn't have played and shouldn't and couldn't and didn't play their best team that day. They had bigger games to play, and as a result Ballyhale had to see that game out, couldn't play their junior players, couldn't bring on subs because it affected their second team, so they annihilated the Roar. Clara maybe stuttered a little bit, and Ballyhale are coming good at the right time. Just simply they're coming good at the right time. But if form is going anything in the Kilkenny Championship, the three city teams won't fear the Shamrocks. There's huge rivalry, and I suppose while the Shamrocks are excellent, everyone is watching, I suppose, the result in the second game, which is the Borough, who are a serious form team at the minute, and O'Loughlin's, who are always a good bet when it comes to playing the Shamrocks. Of course,
go ahead.
I forgot to mention the Village will have something to say about that, James Stevens. But based on form, James Stevens would have to improve an awful lot, and they'll have to get goals out of somewhere. They haven't been scoring goals in the run up to this last 2 months. They've been scoring sizable scores from points, but they've only maybe scored 3 goals in the championship so far. To beat the Shamrocks, I believe you need to be banging in 3 or 4 goals to beat the Shamrocks.
And having watched the county final last year, James Stevens were always held fairly well at arm's length by Ballyhale. It never really seemed like it was in danger that day. Have they changed much since then? Have they evolved? I know Owen Larkin was centre back last year, and he came on the last day in the 121-116 win over Mullinavad.
They've certainly matured. Now Owen Larkin might be getting game time like he did last year, but the last day in particular, the younger guys have come on. Conor Brown is maturing and improving every day of the week for the Village. They have a young guy from minor last year called Cian Kenny. He scored 5 points the last day. And again, they're probably a team that people, if there's a city team, of the 3 city teams, the Village wouldn't be considered the strongest of the 3 city teams. They got to a county final last year. They adopted a sweeper system. It looked like boys again men last year, and I think that will obviously play on the Shamrocks or play on the Village mind, and I believe that there will be a bounce on them. They don't fear the Shamrocks, and that's one thing about them. The Village and the Shamrocks go back in a long time in hurling in Kilkenny, and the proud history of both clubs. So if there's a team that certainly won't fear the Shamrocks, it's James Stevens, but they'll have to improve and they'll have to score goals.
Is there talk that Luke Scanlon broke a finger the last day or hurt his hand?
Yeah, he went off the last day, so he's in a spot of bother. I don't know how bad it is. He went off at half time from the throw-in, and of course he'd be a huge loss. And again, playing the Shamrocks, you need everybody. But look, Cheddar, Plunkett, they play a lovely skill of hurling. They're not the biggest team. They play, as I said, they have a few smaller men. There's nothing wrong with a small man, of course. And they play to their advantages, and they play a nice style of hurling. Might be a little concern about their full back line, but they've strengthened that up as the league has went on. And as I said, they played reasonably well against Mullinavad last Sunday, but Mullinavad could have caught them near the end. So they have more to work on this week, and that's no harm when you're going into play the Shamrocks. All the talk will be about the Shamrocks, so they have nothing to lose, I believe.
If I'm to recall the county final last year, and you might correct me on this, it feels like Matty Root was the only one who was able to win a puck out or primary possession, and after that, the fact that these small forwards that you're talking about were there, they weren't really able to win enough balls. So what's their best chance of winning this game?
Well, I believe playing to the style that they've been playing, and I suppose trying to exploit, I suppose, if there's a weakness in Ballyhale, which there's not. But Conor Brown has gone centre forward, and that's brought huge energy to Shamrocks, or to James Stevens.
Is he bringing a scoring threat?
Brown's form,
yeah,
and match up with Richie Reid, I believe, will have a big bearing on it. While there's a lot of other individual jewels, Richie Reid has after going in centre back, and he's been hurling brilliantly. He's been on the wing the last few years, studying and learning from Michael Fenley, and he's gone in and he's it's like as if Michael Fennelly hasn't been missed. So that duel is massive. And Brown has been very impressive in the last few games for the Village. And I think they'll go down Route 1, down right through the channels, and expect Brown to challenge the centre-back. They might not go down the wings, as you rightly said, because they might have a smaller, tight forward. But when they do win that ball, they have to play a clever ball into these lads.
And is Conor Brown, is he providing a scoring threat at the moment? Because like from midfield with Kilkenny, he's not really scoring too much.
Well, he's providing, shall we say, which is where they're going to have to improve, threatening. He has been unlucky on at least 2 or 3 occasions in every match, would you believe, for goals. Someday they're going to go in, and someday it's going to click. But then when you pass Richie Reid, you have to meet Joey Holden. When you pass Joey Mullen, you have to meet Dean Mason. So hey, it's a big wall to pass, like, you know.
It's not easy. How impressed were you by Dicksboro against Bennett's Bridge? Now, it was an awful beating, 327 to 214. I mean, Bennett's Bridge got to a county final a couple of years ago, so I can't imagine they would have expected a beating like that.
No, they certainly didn't. These were the country team that most people might have said that would have had a bearing on the championship. So people gave Bennett's Bridge a chance against the Borough, and for whatever reason they failed. They failed possibly because the Borough were alert. The Borough are hurting, and hurting badly, because this group of players and the management team have underachieved. They won a championship in 2017 and deservedly so. And since then, they've had a handful of injuries, namely Killian Buckley's missed 1 or 2 of the championship matches, and they were poorly beaten last year by Castlecomer in a low-scoring affair. So I believe they're hurting badly. These are the most equipped team to beat the Shamrocks. These guys have 5 and 6 guys in the subs that will comfortably make any team. They have 5 or 6 ex-Kilkenny minors of the last couple of years not making the team. So if there's a panel and a team that can disrupt Shamrocks, but they have to play O'Loughlin's first, then it's Dicksboro. But however, to be fair to the Borough, playing O'Loughlin's, a city derby can go anywhere, no matter how good or how poor the opposition are. And O'Loughlin's are still very good. And O'Loughlin's and the Borough played a thrilling league final, albeit that both men had been shadow boxing, went to penalties. But when it came down to the wire and came down to who wanted to win it, neither of them would back down. So neither will back down on Sunday either, on Saturday either. So while everyone will expect on form the Borough to maybe have the edge, that'll play right into O'Loughlin's hands, because they're a dowdy team, O'Loughlin's, and obviously with Hughie Lawler full-back, Paddy Deegan centre-back, that's where their strength is, from defence. If there's a concern on O'Loughlin's, it might be that they're not scoring enough goals. They're of a young set of forwards, and it might be a little bit concerning for them that they need to get more out of their forwards, I'd say. And again, they have an exciting talent in a guy called Owen Wall, and this guy hasn't made Kilkenny teams in the last few years because he was playing a bit of soccer, and he was also gone into the defence forces. Now, if he had to be available for Kieran's, had to be available for Kilkenny minors, and available for Kilkenny under-21s, I believe Kilkenny might have had more success with Kieran's, under-21 and minor in the last couple of years. That's good. How exciting this guy is.
He's really this
guy,
good, yeah?
We're all watching and talking about a guy called Kieran Brennan from the Bridge. But this guy, Owen Wall, if he matures and develops and concentrates on hurling, and we puncture a few soccer balls locally in Kilkenny, well then this guy has the talent and the potential to be very good. And I think that's where O'Loughlin's will try and channel their energies. Now, the Dicksboro will know this, of course. But he's an exciting forward. If he can click along with other guys, then O'Loughlin's won't fear a Borough at all.
Yeah, because the Borough scored 327, which is 30 scores. O'Loughlin's got 214 against Erin's own, which is 16. So nearly put up twice as many scores. And I would have thought that O'Loughlin's do, like, I've played them a couple of times in the last few years, and they do have like really good interchange and a couple of lads who can throw over scores for sport. Mark Bergen is obviously a very talented man on the ball too. So what's happening with them that they're not putting up big scores?
Well, they've lost a guy called Martin Comfort in the last year or two, and they've lost a guy called Brian Hogan. So they've had to kind of rebuild a little bit, because Gurta and Martin Comfort was the main go-to man for O'Loughlin's, and he's been a massive loss for them. And so they've had to change their style, and they have a similar type forward. They have a few small guys. They've brought in a few younger guys called Owen O'Shea, who's a county minor under 21, and he's offered a lot to him. And Paddy Butler that's there a while, and he's been excellent at centre forward in the last couple of games. So as I said, they don't have the marquee players up front that the other clubs might have, and they mightn't have the pedigree that at underage level that the other city clubs might have had. But as I said, they're still excellent, and again they have the Mark Bergens, but from defence they're hugely talented in defence. As I said, I didn't mention a guy called Jordan Malloy. There's a Mikey Butler there, all underage talents, and as I said, their strong point is their defence, and up front, if there's a jink, it's maybe in O'Loughlin's. If they can click up front, well then they'll ask questions of the Borough. But look, the betting man and the punter will say Dicksboro by a couple of points.
And is there much poison between these two city clubs?
Not really, no, not as bad. I think because O'Loughlin's and the Borough over the years, the last 20 years, were an up and coming club. They played a bit of intermediate and went down and played a bit of junior. The club that they all love or hate is the Village. That's the club that they all aspire to in the town. They have the pedigree, they have the record, they have the history. And in the last few years, the Village are hurting because they haven't won a championship since 2011. The Borough and O'Loughlin's have won championships since, and they've reminded the Village that they have. So the town teams have possibly bypassed James Stevens. So they're creating their own rivalry in the last few years. But it's a healthy rivalry between the Borough and O'Loughlin's. The bitterness might be between the Village, and only because the Village is the town team that everyone aspires to, because they've been the most successful city team and one of the most successful club teams in Kilkenny. So the rivalry is not as intense. But wait and see on Saturday.
So you're going for Dicksboro and Ballyhale, am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I'm going to go with the punters and the bookies and go with Dicksboro, based on form and based that they have the potential, as I said, and the panel. But I wouldn't be a bit surprised if O'Loughlin's beat them. O'Loughlin's, as I said, are a very good team, but they'll have to click up front. I believe they'll have to click up front, and they'll have to get more out of those few younger players that I said. But they can, and they have the potential. To be a fool to write off Ballyhale, but I think Shamrocks are really might come with a sweeper system again. They've matured. Are they a better team than last year? Yes, they are. But as you said from the opening point, are Ballyhale a better team than they were this time last year? And I'd have said 4 weeks ago, no, they're not. But they are a better team. They're as good as they have been. And that's an amazing trait when you think they haven't Adrian Ronan and Michael Finley. So they're coming at the right time. The worry I'd have for the Shamrocks, they mightn't have been tested as much as the Village, and I liked the style that the Village have played in the last couple of matches. They've played a style of game to allow for their smaller men. So again, it'll be close, but look, after what we've seen in Ballyhale the last 2 weeks, you'd want to be your head examined, I suppose, to think that you could go for the Village. Wouldn't be surprised, but no.
Yeah.
Dicksboro Ballyhale county final for me.
And then the relegation final, your own Greg Ballycallan against Danefort. Am I right in thinking you managed Danefort at one stage?
I did. I had 4 great years down there in 2006 when we were junior, and we got a bounce out of them. We won a junior with 3 young lads called Paul Murphy, Paddy Hogan, and a young lad called Richie Hogan. They were all 19 and 20 down there at the time.
So any manager could have led them to success.
Pardon?
Any manager could have led them to success. Is that
that's
what you're saying?
That's what everyone has told me. So yeah, I came in at the right time and managed that success. We nearly won an intermediate the year after. We got 2 years later. We nearly won an intermediate, but they came up. I left in 2009, and they came up 2 years later in 2011, backboned by those lads and a lot of good young lads. They're still there. Paddy, Richie, and Paul. They're still backboning. They're still the leaders. And that'll just tell you the character of those 3 lads. They're super players, and they have a backbone of a lot of good youth coming up. They've done a huge amount of work underage in the last 10 years, and I'd say, to be fair to them, since that success of 2006, they've gone from strength to strength.
Because you were commentating on that Danefort against Ballyhale match a few weeks ago. Paddy Hogan was out injured, and then I believe Richie Hogan has had his injury problem since. So maybe part of their issue has just been getting all the best players on the field.
Yeah, without a doubt. And strangely, I've watched Danefort on about 3 or 4 occasions this year, and I thought they've never hurled as well this year. And I'm surprised they are where they are. I'm surprised they're in the relegation final. They could have and should have beaten the Village in the first round. They could have beaten who they played the Roar, and after that, I think. And okay, they played against the Shamrocks, put up a decent display. I know both of them were maybe playing a bit of shadow boxing, and with a shadow of a doubt, had won in a bat beaten in the quarter final the last day. Second last day, had him, where Richie gave an exhibition at middle of the field, had Mullen if that beaten, should have beaten him, and didn't beat him. And then the last day, not taken from Tullerone's victory, but they were short Richie Hogan and short Cottle O'Neill the last day. And think of any team, Kilkenny, if you remember, you were a Tipperary man. We were also short Richie Hogan last year for an All-Ireland final. So he's a huge loss. But
the beauty of that thing is you're not. It's not like you're going on about it or anything like that, is it?
No, we don't talk about it at all.
And there's no excuses. You never give excuses either, do you?
No, we let go. We will let go sometime, but not in the next 20 years, especially when we're not talking to Tipman.
Yeah.
But no, he's a serious loss. He'll be back the weekend, and so will Cottle O'Neill, so they'll be back to full strength.
Yeah, and what did you make of Roar Inishtig? We'll say sparing a couple of the players until last week against Greig Ballycallan and a 224 to 413 win over your own Greig Ballycallan. The fact that the Roar kind of played possum, we'll say, a small bit and kept those 5 big players, Kieran Joyce, Joe Ling and so on, and obviously that allowed them to get the victory over your own club there the other day. What did you make of that?
Yeah, no, look, I think most teams would have done the same in that situation. You were short 5 of your better players, Richie Leahy, Joe Ling, Kieran Joyce, Tom Murphy, Jim Ryan. And of course, miraculously they got better last week and they played against us. So whatever was in the water in the Roar last week, it obviously did huge damage to us. We were up 6 points. We had the match won on 2 occasions, but they showed huge fight, led by Joyce, Shane Ryan, Richie Leahy and Jim Ryan, all the boys that were back. And unfortunately, they got the better of us in the end, and we are where we are. To be fair to us, we've had numerous injuries for a small club. We were down 4 or 5 before the year started. We got them back as the year went on. And again, we're a small club. Billy Ryan being the obvious man, missing. He's back. He's not fully right. So we are in a position of where we are, and whether we like it or not, and the knockers and the know-alls and whoever they are in the parish will say, hey, you can't use them as excuses. It's a fact. We've had injuries, and we are where we are, and we're in a huge battle, and we're in a corner. But we've been in a corner before, and we've got out of it. So hopefully we can get out of this corner the weekend, and it's down to the players. No one else will change it. So a relegation in Kilkenny is massive because it's so difficult to come out of intermediate in Kilkenny. We're up 2 years. We have a young team. We have a small panel. We have good young lads coming. We'd prefer to be a struggling senior team than a good intermediate team. So we want to get out of the corner.
Because you're talking about a team that won a Leinster intermediate title a couple of years ago. There's obviously more talent in that team than just Billy Ryan, of course, but he's crucial. How big of a player do you expect him to become for Kilkenny?
I think if he stays injury free, which hopefully he will, he has that flair, he has that speed, he has that grab, and he has that knack of getting a goal, like a neighbour of his called Eddie Brennan. So again, Billy has all that potential, and he's an exciting player, and it's something that Brian Cody likes in the corner forward, a player that can win his own ball. He's a big man, he's 6 foot, and he has all the potential, and has a great attitude, which is hugely important for himself and for Brian Cody. He's not a messer. He takes it seriously, and as I said, has the he puts in the effort. So he's massive to us and massive to a club like ourselves, and hugely important to Brian Cody.
And how do you see this game going?
Sure, hey, we're in a corner. It's difficult if the form is going. Form is obviously all about Danefort. They're the better team for sure going into it. They're the most equipped. If Richie's back and Cottle O'Neill, which I totally expect they will be back, then it's advantage Danefort. But hey, we're in a corner. We have to get out of it, so it could go anywhere.
What do you make of the games behind closed doors?
It's disappointing for everybody. Of course, it's disappointment for the supporters and namely the parents, the families, whoever. Disappointing for the players, but it's still quality hurling. I think the players have set up and adapted very well to the whole thing. We've had exciting matches in Kilkenny, and we've watched other games, and there's been a lot of as I said, we've brought the world of streaming to a lot of people's houses. The Zoom, here we are on Zoom. There's a lot of changes after happening. It's a disappointment, it is, but it's COVID times. They're the guidelines. We're so lucky to have them 3 months ago. We thought we'd have a no hurling and no sport, and what summer we would have had then. We're hopefully going to have an enjoyable winter still, possibly, we don't know. we've had an exciting 6 or 8 weeks in club scene and locally. It's been excellent. It's a pity that people didn't get to see their sons or daughters, even for that matter, in the Camogie where to get to play. It's disappointing, but they're the rules. But as I said, if you 3 months ago, you'd have taken this, and it's certainly helped, I suppose, shorten the winter.
And just a question then about Kilkenny looking further into the winter, and I believe that Adrian Ronan is getting closer to coming back, so maybe he'll be available as well, which would be a huge boost. Are you feeling optimistic about Kilkenny going deep into the championship? They'll be awaiting the winners of Dublin and Laois in a Leinster semi-final.
Yeah, well, I suppose to be fair to everyone, we've all been concentrating on the club scene. Kilkenny have had a few niggly injuries, and again, our championship is going to run a bit later. Wexford are sure going to go back training soon. They're not back already, but they're certainly going to go back training. They'll have an edge in that. From that point of view, they'll have an edge on everyone else. Kilkenny have, as I said, have a few niggly injuries. Richie Lackey's just back. Billy Ryan's just back. Conor Boyd is carrying an injury. Gerard Albert is out. Adrian Mullen. I know we have great medics, and I know Ty Crowley is a great doctor. But if he has Adrian Mullen back before this side of Christmas, well then everyone that gets a cruciate injury will go to Ty Crowley and the likes next year, because I thought 9 months is 9 months for a cruciate injury. So I'd be very surprised if Adrian Mullen is back. I'd be delighted if he's back. It'd make a huge difference to Kilkenny, but I'd be surprised if he's back. But again, Dublin or Laois. Dublin, of course, are Dublin. We never like to play Dublin. Laois, I'm sure they have a long championship going on. Eddie's a neighbour, lives up the road here from me. I can see Eddie from my house here as I'm speaking. He hasn't been going down too regularly with Laois, so they're not training on the quiet. I can vouch for that one. To be fair to Eddie, so again, it's whoever has the most work, and it's like our local championship. And I think this is going to have a big impact on the inter-county as well. Whoever stays injury free, I mean, that's massive. I don't think it's going to come down to the best team at the end of the day. I know Brian Cody's line is the best team always wins, but I think it's going to be the most lucky team, the luckiest team, and whoever stays injury free keeps their key players from injury. And I think that's going to be massive, because I was talking to great Ned Quinn during the game last weekend, before the game, and he was telling me alone in Mooncoin alone they've had 2 or 3 cruciate injuries. There's a huge amount of injuries happening for boys and girls at this level because of the amount of work they're putting in such a compact time. So that's my fear and worry, and we've seen it with Adrian Mullen. If Kilkenny can stay injury free, of course we'll have a rattle at everyone, but we'll have to stay injury free. Absolutely.
What about the job that Eddie's done with Laois, and did you find it odd to see him managing against Brian Cody at Nolan Park earlier this year?
There's no surprise. Eddie has great love for the hurling and great love for the game. Obviously has the medals and the silverware to back it up, and very knowledgeable. And as I said, was a surprise to see him against Brian Cody, but I don't think that had happened. That was more to do with the success of Laois than anything else. He brought him to a level of huge success. When Eddie went in there, maybe Laois didn't aspire to have that expectation to get there. He's obviously brought a new energy, and I know he's well respected. And the pity for Eddie is that he mightn't have got the full complement of players that he should have in Laois. He's down 3 or 4 the first year he went in, got great bounce out of him. He's down 3 or 4 this year again. And if he had the full complement of players and Laois players committed to Laois hurling, well then maybe Laois would be better off, because they've had a great opportunity with a man like Eddie Brennan. And it's a pity for them that they don't have the full complement of players committing to Laois, because, at least look how close they are, short 3 or 4. So they've been excellent, and Eddie's got a great bounce. I believe it'll be difficult now. It's because Laois Championship is going to run on a little bit, and you do have to have the work done. And it's advantage Wexford and Leinster for me.
Absolutely. Adrian Ronan, thanks very much.
Good man, thanks Shane, mind yourself.